Hey, Peter.
Hey, man.
What do you hate about your own playing?
Oh, well, it's interesting you say that. I have a list here.
How long is the list of things you hate about your own playing?
Well, I felt like I had a pretty good self-image, but after making this list, I'm feeling pretty down.
All right, well, we're going to try to build you back up.
Please.
And then we might cut you down again. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, good.
I'm Adam Manis.
And I'm Peter Martin.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Music advice coming at you.
Coming at you today, brought to you by Open the Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com for a deeper dive on all of this. Peter, what's going on, man?
Not much. I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, me too.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I don't know how good I'm going to be doing after we do this episode because it's called Things We Hate About Our Own Playing. But
right. But we're not going to use the word
hate.
Hopefully this will be the last time we use the word hate.
Yeah, let's not get like.
Of course, it'll probably be capitalized in the title.
It will be. It'll be super clickbaity. But let's keep it somewhat positive as we're going through this. How about
things that we're growing with?
Yay! Yeah. There we go. Areas of growth.
Areas of growth. Yeah. Growth elements.
No, the
elements
idea.
Of growth.
I think the idea behind this was that you and I, we've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
We've had some. Pretty incredible experiences playing.
And by this, we're not even talking about the podcast, but we've been doing this for a long time too.
For way too long. But we've been playing piano for our whole lives.
How old were you when you started?
I got my first little air organ when I was 5 and really took to it. And
organ. That dude is bougie AF.
Air organ, not air organ.
Air.
I got one of those little things that's got little cords on the side.
Yeah.
Chord buttons, and then you plugged it into the wall and you made sound with you turn it on and go.
Right. Man, your parents were so smart to get you something that was cool.
It was my Aunt Barbara got it for me.
Aunt Barbara.
Yeah.
God bless you, Aunt Barbara.
I know. But I was thinking about this a few weeks ago that had these chords, major, minor, and dominant chords on the side, and then you could play single notes on a keyboard here. I was like, that's pretty much still what I do. Like just these major, minor, dominant chords over here, and then my single.
But you had to learn to press more than one button to make the chords.
That's you could add do triads together. And make like polychords. Yeah, you could. It was fun. Right. So, but then I didn't start classical lessons until I was 10, which is a little late,
Oh,
so
yeah.
How about you? When did you start?
I think I started when I was 3, although there's my mom and dad, I was playing, you know what it was? I have an older sister. Big shout out to Nancy.
Yeah.
Nancy Martin. And she was playing piano.
Yeah.
And like taking lessons from a friend. It's funny because both my parents play piano. My dad especially is a really good pianist to this day. And so I heard it a lot. And it was like, it was the internet of our house.
That older sibling, man. So can I just say, I just have watched in the last couple weeks, I rewatched The Last Dance, the documentary about the 90s Bulls with Michael Jordan.
Oh, I thought it was about the disco era.
That's a different one. It's called The Last Sniff. Anyway.
No, it was the song Last Dance.
I know.
No, I got it sniff.
Mine
Studio
was a
54.
cocaine reference, but okay. No, then I watched this Arnold documentary on Netflix.
Arnold
Schwarzenegger.
Big shout out to what is the town he's from in Austria?
Oh, I forget. Ironically, he couldn't wait to get out of that town. It looks like a place every American would want to retire
I know.
to.
It's like Sound of Music.
Like so beautiful.
Yeah, but he's like, I had to go to the big city, Graz.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Not even Vienna.
I know. But anyway, no, you just mentioned your older sister, Nancy.
Yeah.
And how she was playing piano. Both Michael Jordan and Arnold Schwarzenegger, they had older brothers who they were incredibly competitive with.
Yes.
And that's probably what made them so great so young.
Right.
It's because they're competing with someone who's a year and a half older than them always. And they're trying to live up to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's an important thing. And I think Arnold and Jordan were both close in age, because that makes it even more competitive, right? Weren't the older siblings?
a year and a half or something.
Yeah, that's close.
Yeah.
I mean, Winton and Branford Marsalis.
I know.
Just put friends of the pod, but just putting that, they're real close, like within a year and a half.
I think it makes a difference.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually for me, it wasn't, I don't think as much of a competitive thing, because my sister's 3 years older and she ended up playing violin too, and then trumpet kind of became her main instrument. But I connected with the instrument, and like I looked up to her for sure, but I liked the sound. You see how it's done.
Yeah.
And really that piano, and it's still at my parents' house, this Yamaha upright was like the internet of our house. It was the most exciting thing with buttons on it at the time.
That's so cool.
Because we had like a black and white TV with like, early mid 70s crap, living in Florida or whatever. Hee haw. Oh my God, that was the most exciting thing that would come on
Remember
television.
Hee Haw? Oh, wow. So we thought today we would just talk about what are the things.
Is this an
we're-
example of you trying to get us back on track?
A little bit. What do we? Today we're talking about things.
Oh, by the way, leave us in the comments. Should we tell them about our little back and forth about this?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
See, I got you off track
he's
again.
going down another path, folks.
That's right. Leave us in the comments. So see if you can figure out which of us wants to guide the pod more towards the tactical things that we say we're going to deliver on in the title.
I mean, is anybody going to say Peter in this instance? Come on.
It could be occasionally. And which of us?
Big squirrel energy over here.
Which of us says, you know what? People are going to love us no matter what we talk about.
Listen, I am confident that the banter is solid, Peter, but there is some things that we promised we would get to.
That's true.
And I don't want to let down our gorgeous, intelligent listeners that
I
are
agree.
so crucial to this.
And now that I'm looking at the clock, I actually have a flight to catch in 3
I was going
hours.
to say, you're the one who's like, we got to be out of here right at 11:30.
Okay, so let's do this.
All right.
So what are we talking about?
Well, we thought we would just go through some things that
Yep.
even after all these decades, I started when I was 5, you started when you were 3. We still are, we say we hate, but it's just areas of growth.
Yeah.
And by the way, most of the things on my list are things I've been working on since I've been an adult. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely have my
Me too.
strengths that I still work towards, but they're sort of natural. I think every player is like this.
Yeah.
You have your thing that you just somehow get
Yeah.
more than maybe someone else does, and you can just kind of run with that and
Yeah.
really enjoy that.
But
And then
sometimes maybe we take that for granted. Like
a
that's
little
a
bit,
part of it.
Yeah,
That
and you
can
get a little
lead
cocky
to that.
with that.
Yeah.
You gotta be brought down. to
Whatever
earth on
comes
those things.
easy is easier to let go of sometimes.
But
too.
honestly, there's the things that for me the number one thing that I keep working on, and there's 2 categories here. We'll talk about the head game and we'll talk about nuts and bolts technique stuff.
Yep.
So for me, the number one nuts and bolts technique stuff out of the gate is my cross under on my going up a scale. So you can actually hear it in my C major scale still, and I've put in God knows how many hours on this. But
Now, folks on the audio pod, let me describe. Adam has a look of forlorn disappointment.
well, because now I'm nervous about playing my C major scales in front of our audience, but it is my cross under on my thumb. I mean, I remember I had a lesson when I was a kid, when I was like 20 with Ted Rosenthal, great pianist.
Yeah.
And that's the first
Shout
thing.
out, Ted.
I'm playing all this stuff. I'm trying to be as soulful as I can and play my monk language because he's like a monk expert. And the first thing he goes is play a B major scale. And he's like, your cross under sucks. And like,
Man, what a great teacher.
It's
be
a
able
really
to
good
focus. To
Yeah.
identify that.
But that is something that for me, when I can get that rolling and the more time I spend working on it, and I have to be regular with my work on that specific things for arpeggios as well. It's the same thing of really slow practice with my cross unders. It's just a technical thing that when I have that on point and dialed in, it makes everything so much easier. So that's my first like real nuts and bolts thing.
Okay, so I'll go with the nuts and bolts one for my first 2 then. And that is that I rush. I'm a rusher.
You're on. You could be on the front foot. Yeah,
I'm on the front
Yeah.
foot. And
But a lot of great players are on the front foot. Have you noticed that?
yeah, but a lot of great players, get control of it too. I mean, I know there's the whole thing of like better to rush than to drag.
Yeah, for sure.
Better to be early than to be late. But it's something that like I've heard in my playing. I did a fair amount. I don't know who. It might have been my dad, but I think it was somebody else. Really, how like you get advice, like great advice has to happen at the right time. There's some people that have a talent for it always being the right time. They're kind of just lifelong learners. They're open. They're able to take advantage and filter, great information. But most of us kind of are not always open to something. So I was probably told this at different times, but for whatever reason, I got it at the right time that recording yourself when you're practicing is a really important element to practice.
It really is important.
So whenever I did get that, it was relatively early. So I always kind of was able to, because things like rushing, playing ahead of the beat, which actually are 2 different things.
Yep.
But they're very hard to identify in real time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or else you wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
You ever catch yourself doing it though, and you're like, "Come on!" I do that on gigs sometimes.
Absolutely. The thing is, for me, like because I've always had this really, one of the talents I have had is to be able to sort of turn off the practice mode and be like, I'm just going to play, like a confidence to just, not that I've got all my stuff together, but that it's going to be good enough for this time, and that it's an important element of being in the moment and performing at the highest level is to really go into performance mode. So The problem with that is I don't in real time hear things like rush. I do when I practice. I definitely do when I hear myself recorded and stuff.
Interesting.
But I have trouble really regulating that. And I think that that's kind of held me back a little bit.
Yeah.
I do think it's within the margin of error. I hate to even, use that kind of a thing. But it's something that I do work. I mean, actually, I keep it in the margin of error by practicing it and paying attention to it. Not when I'm performing necessarily, but doing things, which is really practicing with the metronome at this point for me. That's about being able to hear, and not necessarily practicing jazz stuff, just scales, I'm just putting on, what was the hand independent stuff I was doing last week.
It doesn't matter really what you're doing, as long as you're lining it up with the metronome and then like trying to regulate that to the metronome. That's really all metronome practice could be good for. And
metronome don't lie.
That's really what you need it for. Right. Don't sleep on that. That doesn't mean you have to always have it, but it's really good to check that for sure. Yeah. Another one of my nuts and bolts thing is I want to put sound production and dynamics as something. And actually, I think about you a lot. I was just playing a string of gigs here, like at Jazz St. Louis over the weekend. A really great show called Billy and Ella Revisited with Erica Johnson and Anita Jackson singing, and we had a great time. Caleb was playing drums.
Great. Is that live stream still up?
It'll be up. Yeah, check it out on YouTube on the Jazz
Let's put a link, Caleb, to that, because I would love for
it was a good
our
show.
Listeners to hear you guys, because I watched the stream on Saturday. It's really good.
Thanks, man. Yeah. So, but when I'm playing ballads, if I listen to a recording of myself from when I was in my 20s, like the hardest thing for me to hear isn't soloing or ideas. That's fine. But like my dynamics was so out of whack to what I consider good dynamics. And it feels like something that a lot of people get. The older you get, you realize the importance of sound and dynamics and how powerful it could be. So when I hear you, and this is going to be so hard on this keyboard with this sound, but like when I hear you do a ballad and I hear you do your bell tones, they're so quiet. And I think 22-year-old me would be like, well, how is anybody ever going to hear that? And 44-year-old me is like, that is just where it needs to be within the mix of everything. It's like such a great choice. That, and then like being around people, especially the courses we've made with Fred Hirsch and being around Fred and hearing...
Does Fred like dynamics?
Does he ever? But hearing the power of controlled dynamics within your hands and the swing and the expression you can get from that is more impactful to any power and chops or like, fast eighth note lines to me. At this point in my life, it's like way harder, by the way, to do. And it's so much more rewarding. There's so much you can get out of it. So it's been something that I'm always working on.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, that's interesting because I had on my list for my deficiencies is not using dynamics enough.
You're kidding.
No, I'm serious.
I consider you a dynamic pianist.
Well,
for sure.
It's interesting. So maybe I'll combine this with another one, which is just sort of a lack of progress overall since my early 20s that I actually see as sort of my primary, I wouldn't say deficiency, just sort of a point of frustration for me a little bit, a point of disappointment, let's say. I'm a little like, and that's like, I think especially recently because there's stuff that surfaces that I haven't heard in years. People will send me like, oh, have you seen this YouTube? And I'm like, or it'll just come up in the algorithm. Mostly people send and recent postings of like when I was playing with Betty Carter, which I had never seen.
That's so good. That sounds so good.
And stuff with Roy Hargrove. It's so great that we've got I was just at the edge of like videos being made at these. I mean, not, of course there was videos made in movies.
Yeah.
Many years before I was along, but I mean the stuff is there. So I'm seeing that. And I get a little bit forlorn, I think, and just a little disappointed in that. I'm like, wow, I did sound good then. And I don't really sound that different now in some ways. Like,
I wonder if you are not the best judge of that, though.
Well, hopefully not. Because I feel like, of course, we're going to be our own worst critic in terms of progress. And and the main thing is I don't listen to myself a lot. I never have. I think most people don't. I mean, it's painful for me.
It's hard.
It's not as hard as it used to be.
Yeah.
So I know I've progressed, but there's not a lot of things that I've done that I can put on for enjoyment the same way I would your recordings or a lot of different things that I like.
So I think personal progression, especially once you get to a certain age, it does, like the large brushstrokes of it slow down quite a bit. Naturally, you're finding success in a sound. You're finding your own voice, but
yeah.
And I wouldn't usually make a comparison game, but because this is meant to lift you up a little bit and reassure you that that you are progressing and that it's perfectly natural, is like, think about some great players that made it a long way down the road. Our own Ron Carter, Sonny Rollins. I Ahmad Jamal, people who recorded well into their 70s.
Yeah.
And they still sounded like Ahmad Jamal and Sonny Rollins and Ron Carter, who's in his 80s and still sounds like Ron Carter that we knew from Miles Davis's bands in the 60s. But there has been growth. It's just your signature stays with you. Your fingerprint stays with you your whole life. The growth isn't as obvious as when you hear from the time you're 12 to the time you're 20. Right. That's like the rocket ship growth that everybody gets when they're young.
Right.
As you're learning the language. But to me, I hear growth when obviously one of the most famous recordings people know you for, Peter, is the Joshua Redman Spirit of the Moment live at the Village Vanguard. When I hear that,
there was some rushing.
I hear a way more. I mean, I hear lots of young brilliance, but you're way more of an immature artist than you are at this point. You know what I mean? It's a lot of that young bravado that we love so much in young players, but that's not what people listen for. Throughout their whole lives, or just one thing, That's this one gear that you had when you were super young, and now I feel like you have 6 more gears that you employ than from then.
Good, I'm feeling better.
Yeah, you should.
My posture's getting better. Well, this might be a good time to segue. You know what might be good since we've, bashed ourselves enough now.
Okay.
Maybe we could just go through a few things since you've already kind of started doing that anyway. I could pick up on this. That we really
a little positive affirmation
about each other because you hit on a good point in that it is so hard for us.
That be something you might be interested in.
Yes,
100%. Yeah.
Adam is glowing, you guys. But in the same way that we definitely are not the best judge of our deficiencies. Well, we are the best judges in a way because we know those deep, dark secrets about ourselves and our playing. And even things like...
Yeah, all of us are imposters here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't deserve to be here.
But in terms of like the relative importance and visibility of these things in our playing, we're a horrible judge of that. Like you mentioned about your, the cross-under, and you just got so like defeated about that. And like I've never noticed... that
you're kidding.
No, I mean I would have said something.
A little hitch. You don't hear the little hitch?
No, it's like somebody that's got some food on their face. I'm going to tell you.
Honestly, that little cross under hitch is the loudest thing in my playing to me. Like that's all I hear.
I mean, and I consider myself, a fairly observant teacher.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
But no, I mean, so if I really thought about it, maybe. But I mean, how big that is going to seem massive to you.
Well, sometimes I comfort myself with a little hitch, and I'll just say this with other people so they don't freak out. Like, oh, what if I have a little hitch or whatever? Sometimes I hear a hitch in other people's playing, and I'm like, oh, that's such a great sound.
What personality?
Well, I know it's like their little sound. It's like their little because it's not part of my thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Plus, I don't sit there listen. Well, I do hear you playing scales because we're doing teaching and stuff together. But I mean, that's not the kind of thing that I think is even noticeable in your playing, even when you go to a scalar kind of situation.
Yeah.
But I will say, so something I really admire about you and your progress. Is your ability, kind of what we were just talking about, like my fear of like, not are my best days behind me, but am I really progressing like I did during that time? And you're right. Look, when from that age 10 to 18 or 12 to 16 or 15 to 20, I mean, it's different for everybody, but there's that special time when like light bulbs are going off every day. You're practicing, you've got a passion, you generally don't have to pay rent or take care of kids. There's a lot of things good happening in your life.
Yeah.
Potentially for a lot of development. But I think that you have such a great, you have such a great ability to and capacity to grow as a pianist, as an artist, as a jazz musician, as a teacher, not later in life, but in kind of middle life at a time when most people are at best staying the same. So like, I think this speaks as much to anything as your mindset of being not only a lifelong learner, but in a believer that anything's possible.
Oh, thanks, man.
You know what I mean? And so, I've seen this. Like, you probably progressed in a more linear fashion than almost anybody that I've seen within this music. And that even I thought, just because, it's like it's hard to believe something, even if you theoretically believe it, until you see somebody do it, especially something that's like artistic. I mean, in the artistic world, because so much of this stuff is a combination of things that have been done and things that we just manifest.
Right.
And it's a weird combination. I think that everybody potentially on this planet could understand when you put on your artistic hat, whether you're an artist or not. I think everybody's an artist is really my belief, but I think that we stamp that out of people by saying, you're into math, you're into art. No, we can all be into them. We have our different talents. We have the things that we need to develop. But I think that like this ability within jazz, it's really a fable or a myth or something that you have to hit a certain level by a certain age.
Oh, we see it all the time here at Open Studio.
Absolutely.
We have so many students that are growing, 40 plus.
Yeah.
And
so that's actually, to tell you the truth, in seeing you be able to progress the way that you have, is both frustrating and inspiring to me. Frustrating in that sometimes I listen back and I'm like, wow, okay, give me some of that growth. But it's also inspiring. And I think it has led to some really growth, some real growth for myself, to say that like at any time that we get passionate, that's what it is. It's like to have the passion for that kind of a growth can really come in handy. So
yeah, I'll say for you, I mean, there's so many, obviously most of our listeners are huge fans of your playing, Peter. So I'm sure most people's first thing when they think of you is just the incredibly pronounced and dynamic eighth note right hand line you have. I mean, talk about no hitch. It's just up and down effortlessly and seemingly powerfully, but I know that you're not banging super hard just from the tone production that you get.
Big shout out to the 3 strings I broke in Nashville. Sorry about that last weekend on that Steinway.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Peter's got heavy hands. But that's actually not, that was, I'm sure, what everybody, first thinks about with your sound. But I would say having been fortunate enough to play so many duo situations with you, where it's just us, from this podcast, even some performances we've done, I will say about Peter, you're one of the most, if not the most present musician on stage to play with, giving, listening. Like hanging out with Peter is the same as playing with Peter. So like he just wants to have a good time and have a conversation, and it's a party, right? And you're not trying to take over the stage, even though you totally could. You're not trying to like teach anybody a lesson or overplay. You really want to have the back and forth, just like we do here in this conversation. And not everybody's like that. And it's really a joy to play on the same stage with you, because you are present and attentive and wanting to play and have a conversation with the other players. It's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Okay, I'm going to throw in just one more for you, and then you're not allowed to do any more.
Let's stop there. That's good. No, we got it.
I want to really. That's it.
Okay.
No,
if you have to, I guess.
So, okay, something that I think that I really recognize and admire that comes out in your playing, actually similar to what you were just saying, but in terms of like your technique at the piano, but also your technique as a composer, as an arranger, like a real holistic understanding and technical ability within music that goes well beyond jazz. You've attuned these different skills so well to represent your personality in your music, whether it's composing, arranging, improvising, playing something that's very simple, playing something that's just like traditional burn and bebop or whatever. Like your personality comes out. And luckily you've got a great personality. See, so for some people it'd be like, no, how do you suppress your personality? But
are we recording this one? Is this one? Okay, no, come on, man.
Caleb's over there puking in the corner as we
amazing.
compliment each other. No, but I mean, that's the ultimate level that we're all trying to get to. Like, I think that's the purpose of working on technique, of learning how to arrange. Of course, we're trying to get gigs and make money and impress girls or what. I mean, there's all these different reasons to play music, but it's like ultimately it's to tell a story, and that's coming from you as a person. So
I feel the same way about you, honestly. It's
no, we're supposed to end after. I'm gonna put a hat on a hat.
Well, thank you. That really, if coming from you, that means a lot, buddy. It's super fun to. I love that. We should do this at the end of every episode. We just have a
nobody's listening still. Everyone's throwing up. Yeah, and I want to give a quick shout out to Adam, who's one of the founder and owner of Rudy's Jazz in Nashville, because I did break those strings.
Not me.
No, different Adam.
Different Adam. Yeah.
And Adam, it was my first time meeting him. He actually fixed on the break the string. No, first of all, I've never met a jazz club owner that could tune and service a piano.
By the way, if you're in Nashville, Rudy's is killing.
Right. You have been there, and this was my first time. But what's so cool about that is he was saying he learned to do this because he's like, well, after running a jazz club, I saw how hard it is to get the tuners to come back, and it's needed. It's so expensive. So he's like, I figured. So he just learned it because it was important. So I was very impressed with that.
That's a good club owner right there. All right. Well, this was super fun.
Yeah.
More positive than negative.
Man, my self-esteem is like...
I know. Let's go get some ice cream.
Yeah, let's do it.
Till next time.
You'll hear it.